So first of all, what's 5G? So 5G actually stands for fifth generation for mobile networks. If you look at the screen, it sort of has a summary of starting from first G up to 5G. Some of you may not be old enough to remember the first G. So this was in the 1980s. So if you look back, it's probably about 50 years ago. So each G represents, each generation represents a 1 decade. So that's 10 years. So the first G came out in the 1980s. Second G is 1990s. Third G is in the beginning of the 21st century. 4G was 2010. And right now, we're just about to start 2020. So 5G will cover between 2020 up to 2030, approximately. All right. On the second row, you'll see actually the speed improvements from generation to generation, from kilobits per second, and the 5G will reach up to 10 gigabits per second. On the last row, if you look at the first phone for 1G, that was what we used to call it the brick phone. It looked like a brick, very heavy. At that time, the transmission of information was only one way and one speaker at a time. So if you have two people talking, one person will talk and then switch over to the second person, he will respond, and so on. Okay. So that's a long time back. So what are the vision requirements for 5G? So up to now, right now we are 4G, fourth generation LTE, long-term evolution. So between 4G and the 5G, basically there's going to be a lot of increases in performance, in capacity, all right? For example, the data volume is going to be about 1,000 times more. The number of devices that you can connect is going to be also at least 100 times more at the same time. The data rate is increased by 100-fold. The latency, which is the time that it takes for a request, and when you get the response back, that's called the latency time, is going to be cut down by at least a factor of 5, and we're going to be reaching about 1,000th of a second. Okay. And of course, another thing that is everybody is trouble with cell phones is the battery life, right? Every night you have to go and charge the phone, and it lasts only about a few hours. So every evening you have to go and recharge your phone. So that also will have a lot of improvements in 5G. That means that every time you charge the phone, you will last much longer in terms for use. So this slide summarizes the evolution up to 5G. In the amount of volume of mobile data, it will be increased by 1,000-fold. Okay, the number of devices is going to be increased by a factor of 100. The latency time is going to be cut down by 5x. The data rate is going to be increased by 100-fold, and the battery life is going to be improved by 10x. Okay, so all of that will allow for faster transfer of data, allow more devices to connect to the internet, reduce the time it takes to interact between devices, and it will increase performance and functionality. Okay. So this is also like a summary slide. Higher data rate, higher capacity, reduced latency, savings in energy, and allow much larger number of devices to be connected. So very quickly talk about the technologies. I was asked not to talk too deeply into the technology because I guess the audience is more toward the finance, venture capital, and so on. So I'm going to go over this very fast. So let me say that, for instance, something that we used to do very often is that to download movies, for example, right? So in 4G, if you want to go and download a movie to watch, usually it takes at least 6 to 10 minutes, okay? With 5G, it will be under 1 second. So you're going to see significant speed up. Okay, that means that you almost won't notice. By the time you request it, the thing will already be done. Okay. So this ultra-fast network will allow you to enable a lot of new technologies, such as self-driving cars, autonomous vehicles, virtual reality, and the Internet of Things. So I want to talk very quickly and very briefly on 5 technologies that enable 5G to allow this capability. Number 1, millimeter waves. Number 2, small cells. Number 3, massive MIMO, which stands for multiple input, multiple output. Beamforming and full duplex. So first of all, millimeter waves. So up to 4G, all the transmission of the data was done within the radio frequencies. Okay, radio frequencies means frequencies that are under 6 gigahertz. With 5G, you will not only support the radio waves, but you also provide millimeter wave. That means that you handle transmit signals between 30 and 300 gigahertz. Okay. Now with millimeter waves, transmission will be much faster, although it has also some drawbacks, such as, for instance, when the signal travels over long distances, some of that can be absorbed by the foliage or by the rain. So you need to strengthen the signal. Also, so if you look at this slide, on your far left is what the range of 4G. The frequency spectrum is only for things that are under 6 gigahertz. For 5G, not only you cover the traditional 4G frequency range, but also add on top of that 5G, okay? That means you will increase the spectrum of the frequencies. So that will allow faster data rates and much more capacity. Now, if right now, because you are being provided with both radio frequency as well as millimeter wave, within the US, you have Sprint and T-Mobile, okay? Those will handle the traditional non-millimeter, that is radio frequency, while Verizon and AT&T will provide capabilities at the millimeter wave. Second technology is small cells. Small cells are the portable miniature base stations. Okay. Now the thing with 5G is that the range that the small cells will be able to handle, the distance, is going to be much shorter than 4G. So what that means is that because of the smaller size, you are able to fix these small cells on light poles and also on top of buildings. Okay. But because of the smaller or shorter range, they will require a larger number of these cells, okay? And then you will pose some difficulties for rural areas. Okay. So another technology that is going to be in 5G is called beamforming. Okay. Beamforming basically means that you are able to focus a signal on a concentrated beam that only is one direction only, instead of omnidirectional. It's going to be one direction. Okay. So still you have two axes. One is the vertical and one is the horizontal. Okay. The other thing that 5G technology will enable you is the full duplex. So before, as I said, in 1G, you can send one signal, one direction at one frequency, and the response will come back on another frequency. Okay, so that means that you cannot have two people talking to each other simultaneously using the same frequency. Okay, that you will be able to do that with the full duplex. Okay, quickly let's go over the applications for 5G. Why are people excited? What are some new opportunities that will come up with the 5G? Okay, so 5G, I think just like AI, okay, it's going to be basically be used in almost every field. Okay, you can use it for energy, okay, like smart grid. You can use it in manufacturing, automation. You can use it for public safety, media, entertainment, transportation, We'll give examples of this in the next few slides, as well as healthcare. So let's talk first about transportation. So what 5G will allow you to do is what we call V2X, okay? The X means that it can stand for a variety of things. V2V means vehicle to vehicle, okay? V2I means vehicle to infrastructure. Infrastructure meaning like stoplights, okay, or satellite. Okay, V2P means the vehicle to pedestrian, okay, and so on. So together with 5G and edge computing, then you'll be able to have autonomous and self-driving cars, okay, because the reaction time is going to be enabled to allow you to do that. Okay, so before, without edge computing, without 5G, the speed was not even fast enough for the car to react in critical situations, okay? Such as somebody stepping off the curb and standing in front of the car. Okay? The Internet of Things also. So we mentioned that one of the capabilities of 5G, it allows you a much larger number of devices to be handled at the same time. So in the future, the internet connection is not going to be just between people to people or person to person, but also between device to device, people to device. So everything will be connected to everything. So you can see the larger number of the devices that will be connected. And without 5G, you cannot, the speed, the capacity, the rate, is just not enough to handle it. Okay. Also entertainment and gaming. So for instance, the interaction between 5G and AR and VR. Okay. So the data and the quality of the data, you will not be able to send it unless it's 5G capability. Okay. And it will enable factory automation in the healthcare field. It will enable activities such as remote surgery, remote diagnostics. So the doctor doesn't have to be standing in front of the patient. Okay. And he can perform an operation, and then on the other side, in front of the patient or the person, a machine or a robot can actually perform the surgery, while the doctor is sitting in another area. And then every time he does something with his hand, the robot will actually perform that operation across many long distances. So I think in the previous section we talked about fintech. So 5G is going to be used not only between device to device or machine to machine. It will be used for in the Internet of Things. It will be used for healthcare, also to do financial transactions, okay, peer-to-peer transactions. It will also be used for at home, so smart homes and smart grid and smart cities. Okay, so all of that, you can envision the large number of devices that has to be connected, say within a city, okay, or appliances within a home. So here, this is a slide that shows a little bit about the various usage scenarios. Okay, if you look at the capabilities that 5G allows you to do, from enhanced mobile broadband, okay, that means video, 3D, okay, AR, VR, automation, massive machine-to-machine or device-to-device communications that happens, say, within a smart city. You have between car to car, between people walking to talking to other people, or device to device, okay? So in the Internet of Things scenario, everything will have an ID. So a person will be able to communicate to any device. Devices will be able to communicate between each other. Okay? So unless you have massive, very fast rates and able to handle so many devices simultaneously, you cannot do that. Okay. Also, for instance, we mentioned about mission critical applications, such as remote surgery, such as self-driving cars. Okay. All of that with very low latency are only enabled through 5G. Okay, so very quickly talk about the players and the companies. So here is sort of like, it has almost almost every company is working on it, because you have from cell phone suppliers to infrastructure suppliers to service suppliers. So you have in Korea, you have LG, you have Samsung. In Japan, you have Fujitsu, NEC, Hitachi. China, you have Huawei, CTE. In the US, you have all the carriers like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Intel at the device level, Cisco at the network level, and so on. Okay, and then in Europe, you have Nokia, you have Ericsson, you have Orange. Okay, so this is one study. If you're interested in terms of evaluating what each companies are doing, what are the strengths and weaknesses of each company, there's a very good report called 5G Research. What are the major players up to? Okay, which it lists almost I don't know where everybody's opinion is a little bit subjective. So this one has, for instance, the top 10. Okay, where you agree or disagree with this list. But at least it outlines what each of these major companies are doing in the 5G arena. Okay. Now, if you look at the whole worldwide market, okay, so you take companies like Huawei, okay, which are, of course, they definitely will have the entire China market. Not only that, but probably most of the third world countries, countries in Africa, for example, or maybe countries in South America, which are really just developing countries. They will probably go with Huawei because the Huawei is probably the lower cost. Okay, and then you have other countries where maybe the priority is not as much as cost, but maybe privacy and security. So US, Australia, UK, and so on. Maybe the European Union will probably go with either some of the European vendors or maybe equipment from, say, even Korea. Okay. So locally, of course, each country will support their company, their local company, right? But worldwide, I think there will probably be at least 2 or 3 major system providers. Okay, so just like semiconductors, you always need to have a second source, right? Just in case something goes wrong. Okay, so the summary and conclusion. So 5G is the next generation for wireless communications. I think right now today, if you look at everybody today, right now nobody leaves the home without your cell phone, right? So that means that wireless is almost like part of you. Many years ago when I was working at Xerox, we used to have this, everybody was carrying like a disc. Okay, so it was sort of like your oxygen tank, right? So today, everybody carries with a cell phone. You don't leave the home without a cell phone, right? Because all the data is actually sitting inside your cell phone. So 5G is what's coming. Okay, so everybody is attached to the cell phone, and 5G is coming next. Okay, we are right now sitting in 2019. So probably starting either towards the end of this year, and definitely by the next Tokyo Olympics. Okay, Tokyo Olympics is in 2020 in Tokyo. Okay, you're going to see a lot of advertisement, a lot of prototypes on 5G. Okay, starting probably summer of next year. So 5G will provide a better cost performance, and you provide a lot of capabilities that were not there before in 4G. Okay, so many new applications probably have not started yet. Think that 5G will start officially in 2020, and you go from 2020 to 2030. So many of the applications, unless the technology is already there and people say, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have an application that will do this, this, and this? Okay, so this is just starting. It's just the beginning. And you need to watch out for the next 10 years, from 2020 to 2030. There will be a lot of new things. Okay, people say, wow, now I can do this. Okay, if you look back 10 years, think about a lot of things that you can do today that we were not able to do 10 years ago. Okay. The other thing is that we talk, for instance, in this conference, we talk a little bit briefly about blockchain. We talk about AI. Okay. And in this session, we're talking about 5G. Okay. One thing that you also need to remember is that among all the technologies, nothing really works by itself. As a matter of fact, everything interacts with everything else. So if you look at the last bullet on the slide, okay, if you look at the top, I usually teach emerging technologies. So right now, if you name the top 5 emerging technologies, and you can see it on the last slide. You have 5G, you have big data, you have data analytics, you have IoT, you have AR, VR, blockchain, and so on. Okay, UAVs, drones, robotics, all of those will actually interact with each other. So whenever you are coming out with a future solution, it's not like how you're going to be applying only 5G. It's that how do you combine 5G with robots? How do you combine 5G with drones? Okay? How do you use AI? How do you use data analytics in combination with the speed and the capacity and the capability of 5G? All right? Thank you for your attention.